Okay, so first to list our charts, we'll be adding some styles. Some of the styles will be custom styles, and also we'll be making use of React Bootstrap and Bootstrap class names. So I don't want us to focus on styling too much. So I don't want to type every CSS here, which is the custom CSS. So I'll be sharing a link to this particular file at the description section below, so that you can also access it if you want to. So all I'll do, I'll copy these styles from all users here. I'll highlight everything, and by the way, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It really helps. Okay, cool. Now once I copy, I'll go to my index.css file and I'll paste just after the body right there. And here are the classes that we'll be making use of. And another thing is that I have seen that color here is so repetitive. You can leave it the way it is, or you can use Ctrl D to highlight all the colors, remove them, then add just to the body here, color white. Okay, that's about the CSS. Now I'll just jump into chart. We were able to get our user charts here, and now we'll start working on the UI. So right here, we'll bring in a component from React Bootstrap called the container. We have already used it before. And now inside the container, first of all, we can check if we actually have the charts. So we can say if user charts here dot length is less than 1. So if we actually don't have any charts, the length is 0. We don't want to show anything, therefore what we will do, we will display null. Else we will display the stack component from React Bootstrap. So let's bring it in. Actually I'll save. Now inside this stack component, we'll be having two things. The first one, we'll be having another stack component here. These will be for our list of charts, and then right here I'll just use a p tag as a placeholder, and we'll be having our chart box. So if I save, you will see that we have them now like these. So we want them to be side by side. We can specify that inside our stack here. We have the direction prop. So direction, we'll set it to horizontal. I'll save, and let's check if now they are side by side. So we have list here and we have the chart box here. So as you have noticed, this is further here. We want it to be closer. So if I happen to inspect here and hover over our list, so you'll notice our list is stretching all through. This is our list here. It's stretching all through, but we want it to be shorter. So this stack is made using the flexbox. So we can use some Bootstrap class name here to shrink it. So I'll add a class name and I'll set it to flex-grow, and I'll set this one to 0. If I save and I happen to check now, you'll see now they are right here, both of them. So now our list is not stretching, but we need a gap between them. So for that, we'll come to the first stack here and we will add the gap prop, and we can say let the gap be 4. Also, I can add a class name here, class name. We will make sure that everything is aligned to the start. So align items right here to be start. Now when I save, you'll see that we have a gap between them, pretty nice. Now let's just dive into our list here. So inside this stack, we can add some few more styles. So for the class name, I'll also add messages. Now this is a custom style, and all it has is a height of the messages box. So I want the list to be having the same height as this. So to check these, you can just copy, come to index.css, use Ctrl F, then right here you just paste, and you see that style here, the height is set to 85 VH. So that is all. You can also have a gap here, and I'll set this to be 3. Now this is gap between our charts. Another thing that I will add is at our styles here, our classes, I'll say PE, meaning a padding end of 3. So that is just a bootstrap class. So now right here we'll be able to map through our charts. Okay, so to show the loading status, you can just include this. So is user charts loading, and if we have that as true, we'll be having a p tag, and we can say loading charts. So that is how you can include that state. Now right here, let us just map through our charts, and we'll say user charts dot map. Right here we will have an arrow function. We'll get a chart at a time, and also we'll have access to the index of that chart. And in here we should now return a div. So let's say div, and we should give it a key, and I'll set the key to be index. Cool. And then inside this div we'll be having a component. So what I need to do is to go to components, add a new folder. I can call it charts, just chart. Inside this chart folder, let us add a new file, and now I can call this the user card component .jsx. Let's go ahead and create a sample component right here, sfc user chart. Then right here we can say user chart. So let's bring that in our chart.jsx here, and we'll make use of it inside here. So we'll say user chart. I click to auto import it like that. Now in this particular user chart, we will be passing our chart. So let's pass the chart. So we'll say chart will be chart. Also let us pass the user. We'll say user is equals to user. So we don't have this user, so let's bring that user in here, and I can just duplicate these. Actually I'll copy and paste. Then right here we will bring in the user from our auth context. So instead of chart context, I'll say auth context and save. So now we are bringing in the user and passing that user to our user chart through props. So I'll save, and at this point we should be able to see user chart here. So let's go and see, and I refresh. We have an error. This is not defined. I misspelled something on line 20. So user charts, I save. So we need to jump into this user chart. So I'll come back, go to user chart, and we'll be able to bring in our chart and also our user. So what I'll do, I'll create a custom hook, and then we'll use that hook to get the other user details. Okay, cool. So let's see how we can create a custom hook and make use of it right here. So inside our client, inside the src folder, I'll add a new folder and I'll call it hooks. Inside the hooks, I'll add a new file and we will call it use fetch recipient. So this is the other user.js. Now in this particular hook, we will be making use of the use state. So let's bring it in, and the use effect. So we'll be making use of use effect. Also we'll be making use of the use state right here, and that will come from React. And now down here we can make the function. We'll say export const use fetch recipient, and I'll set it to be an arrow function here. We will be accepting a chat and also the currently logged in user, like that. And now right here, just like in a normal component, we'll be able to set the state. So right here we can set const recipient user, and we'll say set recipient user, and we'll set this to be equal to use state. So our hook here, initially these will be null, and also we can have some for the error. So we will be making use of the use effect to fetch our other user from the DB. But before we do that, we should know the ID of the other user. We can make use of the find method. So right here I'll say const recipient ID will be equal to, we have access to our chat, and inside the chat we have access to the members. So we have access to the members array, and then we use the find method, and we will find the user ID that is not equal to this user ID. I hope it makes sense. We will find the ID inside the members that is not equal to this particular ID. So that ID is the other user ID, okay? So right here, members, remember it's just an array of IDs, 2 IDs. So right here we'll be having an ID, and whatever we will return is an ID that is not equal to our user.id. So that means that it's the other user ID. So now we use this ID to get these user details from the database. So right here we can make use of the use effect hook. I invoke it just like this. Right here we'll be having an array of dependencies, and we can say const get user will be equal to an async function. So async, and this can be an arrow function. And now down here we make sure that we are calling that get user, just like that. And in here we perform our request just like we did with our charts. So pretty similar. So first of all, we should make sure that we are having an ID before we attempt to make the request. So right here you can say if we don't have the recipient ID, let's just return from this, we return null, okay? We immediately return, else we continue down here and we set const response to be equal to await. So we use our get request service. So I click on it to auto import it, and right here I use backticks, and we read the base URL right here. So I'll say base URL, let's auto import it, stroke users, stroke find, and we pass the ID of our user, who is now the recipient user. So here we pass our recipient ID. So if this goes through, we will be having our response, our user in our response. If it doesn't, we'll be having an error. So we can say if we have response dot error, or we will do is to set the error here. So we will immediately return set error to error. Okay, and if we don't have an error, we will set our recipient user to be our response. Okay, so now down here, after our use effect, we should be able to return something, and we will say return whatever we will return is our recipient user. You can also pass the error here if you want, so you can pass the error, but I will not be handling so much error, so I'll just ignore it. Now we can make use of this hook, use fetch recipient user. Let's complete it to user so that it makes more sense. Now in our user charts, so right here we will say const, and we will destructure our recipient user from our use fetch recipient user. So use fetch recipient user, we invoke it. So this hook, it's a custom hook now, but it expects us to pass chat and user. So we do that right here. We pass user and chat. Now we should be able to get our user right here. Let's log that user to the console. So we can say console.log of recipient user, and I will save. So in our chat, let me remove this log so that we don't have so many logs in our console, and we should be having an object of a user. So let's see if it's coming through. We have some issues. Uncaught, cannot read property of undefined. We should be destructuring them here from props. Okay, so let's destructure them from props like that. That's why it's not working. So let's see. Okay, cool. Now we have our chat, and we are actually getting the other user, who is John. We are currently logged in as Chaoo, but we are able to get John. Pretty nice. So it's working. We were not just destructuring our props. So let's remove this. I'll save. So now we have the details of our other user inside our user chart right here, and we can now use those details to show that user here. I will remove the log. Instead of returning the user chart, we can have the stack. So we'll have the stack direction here will be equal to horizontal, a gap of 3. Another thing that we can add to the stack here is a class name. So class name, we will have the user hyphen card. So we should be importing this from Bootstrap. We align items to the center. We will be having a padding of 2 around our card, and we can justify hyphen content hyphen between, and I'll add a div with a class name of d-flex standing for display flex. Okay, so in here we can add another div with a class name of me-2, meaning margin the end of 2, and right here is where we'll be having the avatar. So I'll include just an A. We can replace this later on with an image, and then right here we'll be having another div, and in here, so we'll be having dot name. I hit enter, and right here we can now show our recipient name. So we'll say recipient user and dot name. So there we should see John, and then after this we'll have dot text. These will be the text message. So right now we are not getting our messages. Let's say text message like that. Let's save and see if we are actually getting something. Okay, cool. We have here A for avatar, then we have the name of the user, the other user, then we have this text message. Okay, cool. So far so good. After this dflex, we will add another one down here, and we'll also be having d-flex, so display flex in short. This is bootstrap classes, and then right here we can flex hyphen column, and we align hyphen items to the end. And now in here the first thing that we show is a date, so dot date, and right here we'll be having a dummy date, so just an example date. And then right here after the date, and I'll hit enter, and I'll say maybe 2. I save, and now look, so we have John text message, have this and this, pretty nice. Also we'll be showing an online status, so let's include here down here. We will be having a span. We'll be making some of these class names to be dynamic later on as we move on with our application. So now you see this online status here, green, pretty nice. I hope we don't have any errors. I'm seeing a lot of red stuff here. Okay, cool. Now let's find an avatar. This is a nice site to get free illustrations. So let's search. Okay, profile, we get something. We have this. I'll use this. We can get it as SVG, download SVG for the project. So I'll save this particular SVG inside our project client. We had this assets folder, so I'll save it here, and I'll set it as avatar dot svg, and I'll save. Okay, so now that is saved, we go to our app, and when you check now at assets here, we have this avatar SVG. Now we go to our user charts, and what I will do, here we had an A. Instead of using an A, we can load it as an image. I'll say img, we'll have SLC here, and we'll set it to be equal to our avatar. For us to include it, we have to manually import it. So let's bring in an image. This is how we do it. So we will import avatar from, and right here we'll say, and then we move another step upward. Here we will be having our assets. I don't know why I'm not getting suggestions. And then we will be having our avatar .svg file. Now we can load this avatar right here at our SLC avatar. Okay, we can add a height, and I'll say that 5px. I'll save, and now we have a small one here. Now also another thing that we will be doing is that we want these to be clickable. So right here you can add the role of this stack component to be a button. Okay, now when I save and come back, when I hover, you can see it's changing the cursor. And what we will be doing when we click on this chart, we'll be setting it to state as current chart, and then we'll be able to get the ID of the chart and load the messages for it right here. Okay, but for now, this is it. This is how we can get our chart. Now the next episode we will see how we can create a new chart. So that is it for this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.